Chapter 396, Winner. Glory. A single giant word appeared on the projection screen as if it were about to pounce towards everyone's faces. It wasn't just Yishu and Chen Guo. The players who had been watching Excellent Era's match all let out a breath because this intense match had finally ended. For this type of match, even if the spectators didn't care about any of the teams, they would still feel extremely satisfied watching such a spectacle. All of the spectators watching the match forgot to turn back, seeming to have forgotten that Excellent Era's match was still going on. It really is like you said, Chen Guo told Yishu as she watched the match's replay and listened to the commentators and honored guests' post-match discussion. Yishu nodded his head and didn't say anything more. He had said everything he could say earlier. At the final stretch of the match, Huang Xiaoshan intentionally gave up his chance to attack in order to break the balance, but Wang Jiexi was able to seize this chance to end the match without giving Huang Xiaoshan any chance to find an opening. There was nothing Huang Xiaoshan could do. He could only struggle and try to create an opportunity, where there were no opportunities. However, this really wasn't one of his strengths, especially when he was against Wang Jiexi, who wasn't any less skilled than he was. In the end, he was defeated. So far, Team Tiny Herb had won 4 points, while Blue Rain had only won 1 point. The team competition though was worth 5 points. The competition only counted points, not victories. Even though Blue Rain had only won 1 pitiful point so far, the team competition was another beginning. 5 points could still be fought for. However, several defeats in a row would definitely have a serious impact to their morale. Blue Rain's fans watched on with heavy hearts. The break after the group arena was relatively long. After all, the players participating in the team competition were usually the 6 players in the individual and group arena competitions. They were allowed to play again, so they were given some more time to rest. Yishu got up and strolled around, smoking his cigarette. Only then did Chen Guo look for her employees to confirm their losses tonight. When the two returned, the host and the guest were still chattering about the previous battle between Huang Xiaoshan and Wang Jiexi. But after hearing Yishu's simple analysis, Chen Guo could only feel like the two speakers weren't good enough. They kept on talking about this and that, but they didn't get to the point. After a short wait, the team competition officially began. Because of the brilliance of the match, when the team competition began, the players watching Excellent Era's match were beginning to glance at the projection screen again, conflicted on which match to watch. Just as expected, there weren't any major changes towards the player roster for the two teams. It was basically the same players from the previous rounds. The only difference was that one of the players on Blue Rain's side was switched out to the team captain, Yu Wenzhou. This switch was a common occurrence for Blue Rain. Yu Wenzhou's hand speed was innately bad. If he actually fought one-on-one, he would be at a huge disadvantage, so Yu Wenzhou rarely went up on stage for the first 2 rounds. But in the team competition, this master tactician was never absent. Not only that, ever since his first showing, he was often the opposing team's first target to kill, commendable yet worrying at the same time. The match soon began. Besides the 2 reserve players, 10 players entered the map and set out. Looking at Yishu, who was staring at the projection attentively, Chen Guo endured for a good while, before asking, "How is it?" "Boss, with you like this, what's the point in watching? You should go to sleep. When it's done, I'll tell you the results," Yishu said helplessly. "No. I just want to listen to your opinion." "I can't do that," Chen Guo said. "If you keep on asking for my opinion, then this will turn into a spoiler," Yishu said. Even though Yishu had seen through the situation and predicted the result on more than one occasion, saying that his analysis was like a spoiler was too shameless. Chen Guo didn't know how to respond. The golden image of her god crumbled a bit more. Chen Guo felt that if she and Yishu continued with this sort of close relationship, in at most a month, her respect for her god would completely disappear without a trace. "Let's watch quietly." "It started," Yishu said. The brilliance of the team competition wasn't any worse than the match between the 2 gods. It was true that Yu Wenzhou was one of the 4 master tacticians of glory, but if the number of master tacticians wasn't limited to 4, the 5th master tactician would certainly be Wang Jiexi. From this, it could be seen that although Wang Jiexi didn't have this type of title, he had the skill. Leading Tiny Herb to win 2 championships wasn't an accident. This team competition had both strategy and skill matchups, sneak attacks and brute force. The map was enveloped in flames of war with hundreds of bright patterns bursting out. Not long after, the fight had progressed midway. The camera repeatedly switched points of view. The broadcast crew didn't have it easy either. There were too many brilliant moments to see. Giving up even a single segment made them feel it was a pity. Wang Jiaxi is carrying too much of the weight, Yi Shu suddenly said at this moment. Chen Guo replied absent-mindedly. She watched this team competition very attentively and had even forgotten to ask about his opinions. It's not looking good for Tiny Herb, Yi Shu said. No way? You saw through it again? Yi Shu wouldn't say it when she asked. Now that she didn't ask, Yi Shu ran over to become a talk host. Wang Jiaxi truly needs someone who can help share the burden, Yi Shu said. Really? What about Deng Fusheng? Li Yiwei, these 2 Team Tiny Herb players had been chosen as all-stars. Whether you believe me or not, if they weren't in Tiny Herb, they probably wouldn't have been chosen to go to all-stars, Yi Shu said. You're saying the all-stars selection isn't on skill, but rather popularity. The fans make the vote. Even though they need to have good performances too, there are other areas to consider too. For example, in a weak team, it's easier to see an individual's skill. But in a strong team, the team's outstanding performance might cover up their weaknesses, Yi Shu said. You're saying Deng Fusheng and Li Yiwei belong in the latter category and that it was only because of Team Tiny Herb's champion status that they were chosen? Chen Guo said. I'm mainly saying this so you understand that being chosen for all stars doesn't necessarily mean you're the most skilled. For example, I feel like Team 301's Xu Bin is better than Deng Fusheng's Knight, Yi Shu said. Grind King Xu Bin, Chen Guo obviously knew who he was. Yes, Yi Shu nodded his head. If Tiny Herb doesn't have Wang Jiaxi or if Wang Jiaxi performs badly, they will lose miserably. They rely on Wang Jiaxi too much. Nowadays, glory can't be won by a single individual hero. The gap between players is continuously shrinking. 1 + 1 is greater than 2. That's the sort of strength a team has to have in order to be outstanding, Yi Shu continued. Do you feel like any team in the alliance has that sort of strength? Chen Guo asked. Blue Rain, Yi Shu said without hesitation. The team closest to this sort of development is definitely Blue Rain. But it's also somewhat unfortunate. Team Blue Rain's captain, Yu Wenzhou, is extremely key. But because of his crippled hands, he also holds them back. I've heard, Chen Guo nodded his head. Yu Wenzhou's crippled hands, similar to Huang Shaoxin's chatter, weren't a secret. But, luckily his weakness is his crippled hands. He'll definitely be the longest player to stay in the alliance. In truth, with his hand speed, there's no way it'll go any lower. I'm really wondering whether this guy is intentionally not practicing hand speed in order to maintain his crippled hands condition and prolong his ability to stay in the pro scene, Yi Shu said. The two chatted and the match didn't show any signs of stopping for a rest. As the battle progressed, it went like Yi Shu predicted. One of Team Tiny Herb's players was the first to fall. In a team competition, this was definitely a dangerous sign. It became even more clear as the fight went on. By the time Tiny Herb had finally killed one of Blue Rain's players, Tiny Herb had already lost 3 versus 5. Against a strong team, turning around this type of situation was extremely difficult. In the end, Blue Rain defeated Tiny Herb, winning their team 5 points. The latecomer lives above. Blue Rain won a total of 6 points, beating Tiny Herb by 2 points. If a long-term problem isn't resolved, the opponents will take advantage of the weakness to win. Yi Shu commented. He was naturally pointing towards Tiny Herb's weakness of depending on Wang Jiaxi too much. Meanwhile, the commentator and honored guest were discussing the gains and losses for the small details in the team competition. The accumulation of these led to Tiny Herb's eventual defeat. Out of all of these, they picked out which was the decider for the match. However, from start to finish, there was no mention of the issue Yi Shu had talked about. Chen Guo listened in a trance. In truth, she had heard what Yi Shu said, but she couldn't see it. On the other hand, she felt like the analysis of the commentator and honored guest had substance to them. Yishu's words sounded far away to her. It seems like I'm just not good enough, Chen Guo grieved. If this was before, she would have questioned whether Yishu was just bragging. But now that she knew Yishu's identity, even though he was somewhat shameless, Chen Guo felt that his words felt more weight to them than the commentator or the honored guest. Okay, done. Yishu stood up and waved his arms, time to level. Before he finished speaking, he was already walking towards his fixed seat. Chen Guo felt conflicted when she looked at him walking away. He was someone who could completely see through those gods' intent and could even predict who was going to win, yet he was stuck in her internet cafe in a new server killing monsters and doing quests like a normal player. What a waste. He has to make it back. Chen Guo turned her head back to the projection screen and shook her fists. Chapter 397, Words that hadn't been seen in a long time. Life in the game continued. Players continued to clear dungeons, kill monsters, and complete quests. After all, these are the three main parts of Glory, everything else is just to make these more interesting. These basic frames have never been changed. All of the guilds agreed to step down, but Yishu didn't loosen his guard. Since the moment he established the guild, he knew that the other guild leaders would be his enemies forever. They were only temporarily stepping down. It was just that they hadn't found any ways to fight back yet. If they ever thought up a new scheme, a violent offensive would immediately be carried out, without any warning, of course. The best method of collecting information was to use someone condemned and hated by everyone, a spy. But Guild Happy had just been established. It wasn't that there wasn't anyone who could be trusted. Even if there were, they weren't high enough level to join any of these guilds backed by clubs. However, from this point, it could be seen that Guild Happy was actually very high-end. It had been established not too long ago, yet it was already considered as an opponent to those guilds backed by clubs. This had never happened before in the history of Glory, even in new servers. Guild Happy could only develop step by step because those sorts of methods wouldn't work. Blue River went back to his Blue Brook Guild leader account. Peerless Looks hadn't logged in since then. However, because Yishu disabled the Join Guild feature, the number of members stopped increasing. The existing members had all been organized appropriately by Blue River. Everyone was simply grinding monsters to gain experience now. The guild atmosphere was happy and fun. No unexpected problems occurred. Compared to the first few days the guild was established, the excitement had fallen a bit. This could be seen from the guild experience bar. These days, the enthusiasm for doing guild quests had calmed down. It wasn't like the first few days, where guild missions were everything. It wouldn't be good for Happy to force them to do anything, letting the guild grow peacefully was for the best. During these few days Yishu was keeping an eye on the situation at Thousand Waves Lake and also asking other guild members on the situation at other leveling areas. The atmosphere in the game was unusually calm, as if all conflicts had disappeared from the game. In a blink of an eye, 5 days had passed and Thousand Creations and Horse Shooter successfully joined Guild Happy. Once midnight arrived, Guild Happy could begin challenging the Thousand Waves Lake dungeon record as well. During these 5 days, the Thousand Wave Lake's dungeon record had been broken a few times. Yishu noticed these, but he was certain that as soon as he came up to the stage, beating them would be easy. It wasn't like the walkthrough he sold was imperfect. Yishu would be using the same strategy as the guide. The difference was in technical skill. The higher the level, the harder the dungeon. The elite players of other guilds were experienced players, but level 40+ dungeons were already too difficult for 3 of their players to beat. In newbie areas like Green Forest and Spider Cave, 3 of their players was more than enough to beat the dungeon with ease. The more difficult the dungeon, the more Yishu, Su Mucheng and even Tangru would stand out. This could directly be seen by the fact that Yishu's party still didn't need a cleric. While for the other dungeon teams, few dared to go without a cleric at this level stage. The closer things got to this moment, the more careful and cautious Yishu became. The main reason the other guilds hated him was because of his ability to monopolize dungeon record. The other guilds must also know that Guild Happy was going to seize the dungeon record in Thousand Waves Lake. They might have had plans for this long ago, but were waiting for this moment to use. The clock finally hit midnight. Yishu's 5-man party arrived at one of the Thousand Wave Lake's dungeon entrances. Yi Shu checked carefully around, but didn't find anyone from other guilds. In that case, he didn't have to worry about getting ambushed when they came out of the dungeon. Is it really going to be this peaceful? I'm not used to this. Yi Shu scratched his head, while saying this to his team. You aren't happy it's peaceful? Is it because your name isn't read that you're not feeling comfortable? Chen Guo looked at him disdainfully. For such an important day like challenging a dungeon record, Chen Guo felt that as the boss behind the scenes, she should personally give some advice. The several players at Thousand Waves Lake were used to suddenly hearing a woman's voice from Yi Shu's character, and apparently, she was Yi Shu's boss. Thousand Creations and Horse Shooter were terrified after hearing this. Yi Shu's boss? What kind of background did she have? Hearing the voice today again, they know the boss was personally watching the battle, and she clearly considered this dungeon record as something very important. The two of them sat up straight, not daring to make any careless mistakes. Cough, let's enter the dungeon, Yi Shu said. Lord Grimm entered the dungeon first and the other 4 members followed afterwards. Challenging the dungeon record was something Tang Ru liked to do. Because it had been a while, she was in high spirits. But she also knew how important every detail was when challenging the dungeon record. This was something Yi Shu had reminded her before. The 5 of them had run the dungeon together these past few days, so they were already very practiced with the strategy. If they had wanted to, the record could have been made a few days ago. It was just that in order to get the record under Guild Happy's name, they had delayed it. After all, it was just the 5 of them. If they had broken the record earlier, it was hard to say if they could do it again. This was something that even Yi Shu couldn't say. Surpassing oneself wasn't easy to do. Yi Shu was confident with this team beating the record. Although Thousand Creations and Horse Shooter weren't as skilled as Steamed Bun Invasion's newbie playing was like a ticking time bomb. Setting a new record required precision. Yi Shu would actually feel more worried bringing Steamed Bun Invasion. Even if Steamed Bun Invasion practiced well to the dungeon, Yi Shu was afraid Steamed Bun Invasion would do some weird stuff. Yi Shu felt more at ease with experienced players like Thousand Creations and Horse Shooter. In accordance with their daily practice, this time, everyone went all out. Yi Shu ran to the front. This was the position for the tank in a normal team, however all his teammates knew that Yi Shu wasn't a normal tank. A normal tank used skills to pull aggro and control the monsters. Then, the DPS classes in the team would have to be careful not to off-tank or attack the wrong monster. However, Yi Shu's tank pulled aggro through pure damage, so his teammates didn't have to worry about going off-tank. It could be said Yi Shu himself took most of the difficulty of the dungeon. His teammates had much less to worry about. With this strategy, Thousand Creations and Horse Shooter would be embarrassed if they made any mistakes because the tasks they had to do were too simple. 2 battle mages and 2 launchers. They were both DPS classes. With Yi Shu being the core, and Su Mucheng as the support, they rolled through the dungeon at full speed. Although Thousand Creations and Horse Shooter had cleared the dungeon with them many times, this was the first time they noticed how pro players really played. Amazing, the 2 of them praised. Of course they were talking to different people. Thousand Creations was a Yi Shu fan and Horse Shooter was a Su Mucheng fan. But this wouldn't change relationship between the 2 because everyone knew that Yi Shu and Su Mucheng were very close. If their fans couldn't remain peaceful, wouldn't that be a slap to their idols' faces? Thousand Creations and Horse Shooter fought in excitement, killing all the small monsters. In a blink of an eye, they reached the boss. They weren't worried at all. With godlike teammates, they couldn't feel the difficulty of the dungeon at all. All they had to do was look at their cooldowns and mana. Boss number 1 was killed quickly. Chen Guo looked at the time and was very excited. The only problem was that she couldn't find anyone to share the joy with. Yi Shu and Tang Ru were both focusing on the dungeon, so she didn't want to disturb them. The dungeon progressed smoothly. The second boss was killed even faster. Chen Guo looked at the time and she couldn't help but run to get a drink to celebrate. The latter part of the Thousand Waves Lake dungeon was in the water. This was another advantage for Yi Shu. In PvE, the elites might not feel as awkward in the water, but they couldn't compare to Yishu and Su Mucheng in this area. As for the others, they were already familiar with this part of the dungeon. Advance, advance, advance. Chen Guo wasn't looking at the fight anymore. She just stared at the time, while drinking. This level 40 dungeon had 3 mini-bosses and 1 final boss. After the second boss, they slaughtered their way to the third one too. Although the strategy wasn't the same, the result was the same. There were no trip-ups and the third boss fell. The final part. Everyone stay focused. This was the first time Yishu spoke from the beginning to the final boss. The whole team worked together perfectly. There was no need to speak. Yes sir, everyone replied. Keep up the good work. Everyone also heard the boss behind the scenes speak. Go. Yishu only said a single word. As always, Su Mucheng's cleansing mist started the aggro and Yishu's Lord Grim followed up. Gunfire, battle spear. Because of the duplicate classes, the effects repeated a lot. In terms of visual effects, it didn't look as beautiful as when multiple classes burst forth. However, in terms of efficiency, they wouldn't lose out one bit. The final boss's health bar wasn't being slowly whittled down, but instead fell rapidly at a speed that could be seen with the naked eye. Die die die. Chen Guo didn't dare to make a sound, holding her mobile with both hands, muttering silently in her mind. It's dead. Finally, she didn't need to control herself. She could shout out this sentence. The final boss in Thousand Wave Lake had fallen. A system announcement flew out. Congratulations to Guild Happy's players Lord Grim, Cleansing Mist, Chasing Haze, Thousand Creations, Horse Shooter for breaking the Thousand Wave Lake dungeon record. Time, 30 hours 25 minutes and 41 seconds. Having not seen this for a long time, Tang Ru smiled in satisfaction. Chen Guo looked a bit regretful. She saw Yishu and Tang Yu look at her and said, Guild Happy, it doesn't sound good, we should have called it Happy Valley or something. Chapter 398, Too Silent. While everyone was happy that they broke the record, this boss behind the scenes suddenly talked trash about the guild name. This was something that even the experienced Yishu hadn't expected. Chen Guo's sound had been directly relayed to everyone from Yishu's mic. The whole team was in an awkward silence. After a moment of silence, the first to talk was the experienced Yishu. He continued with the trash talk on the guild name. Let it be right what it is right now. We can change it when we reach the heavenly domain. After all, that will be our main server. That's reasonable. Chen Guo nodded her head and then spoke again as if she had thought of something. Then should we create our guild on the other servers, too? Yishu said with a handful of sweat, it's still too early. Okay, Chen Guo answered. She had finally stopped talking. However, the random trash talking had killed everyone's excitement. Continuing to be excited after all that felt a bit dumb. In the end, Yishu faced the rest of the squad like a great general and said, let's keep dungeoning. Only a single run had been needed to beat the record. They still had 2 more chances to run the dungeon, so, of course, they would use them. It was a very logical choice. The other 4 members didn't have any objections. As a result, while their guild members were still celebrating the new record, the 5 main characters were already back to their usual leveling life. If truth, their excitement hadn't calmed down that quickly. It was just that they had been interrupted by a random thought and didn't know how to continue. For example, after beginning their second run, Thousand Creations and Horse Shooter couldn't help but open up the dungeon record rankings, admiring their own names in the Thousand Wave Lake dungeon record, as well as the time of 30 hours 25 minutes and 41 seconds, and giggle to themselves. Due to that, the 2 weren't focused enough and weren't able to keep up with the team, making mistakes here and there. Their second run clearly wasn't going to be good enough to beat the record. Thousand Creations and Horse Shooter immediately apologized. Yishu told them not to worry. The current record was more than good enough. The time of 30 hours 25 minutes and 41 seconds was already 4 minutes ahead of the second place time. It could be said that this was mainly because of Yishu and Su Mucheng's strong control over the monsters. In addition, the synergy between the 2 was considered to be at the top, even on the professional stage. It was that same reason again, the harder the dungeon, the bigger the advantage Yishu's team had because of their skill as pros. Yi Shu was already very satisfied with the record, but he felt like the reactions from the top guilds were somewhat strange. It was too quiet. So quiet that it didn't fit the game. The moment that they had exited the dungeon, Yi Shu had paid close attention to his surroundings, but didn't notice any movements. Had the guilds really given up on competing with him? Yi Shu couldn't believe it, but that's how it seemed to be. With Yi Shu's experience, there had to be some scheme going on. The top guilds weren't making a move because they had a plan in mind that was waiting to be used. What could it be? Yi Shu thought as he sent a message. The first person he would contact was, of course, Blue Brook Guild's 10th server guild leader, Blue River. What do you think? Amazing, no? Yi Shu began the conversation like this. What? Blue River answered. Record. Did you not see it? Yi Shu replied. Oh, I saw it. But that's expected, Blue River replied calmly. Oh, so what are you guys planning to do? Yi Shu asked. Blue River understood what he meant, but saying it in such a straightforward manner left him speechless. He could only use, as a reply. Come back on Peerless Looks when you have time. A lot of our members miss you and they often ask where you are. See, if you had told them that Blue River is your main account, they would message Blue River directly and that wouldn't be convenient. After all, you're a spy, no, Yi Shu said. Blue River was speechless again. This was really weird. The boss knows you're a spy, yet still takes care of you. It was really weird. Blue River couldn't find any words to describe his feelings right now. Then let it be. Everyone is going to be out of Thousand Waves Lake soon. Do you have something planned for the next leveling area? To be honest, I'm really looking forward to it. Yi Shu added a hopeful emoji to his last sentence. Blue River's heart stopped beating for a second upon seeing this. They had tried countless number of plans, but Yi Shu managed to outsmart them and take advantage of them every time. From this point of view, it was quite reasonable for Yi Shu to look forward to their plan. It looks like you're going to be disappointed this time, Blue River replied. This reply surprised Yi Shu. Did it mean that, this time, the guilds won't be making any moves? Giving up Thousand Wave Lake made sense because the skill gap in a water battle was too large. They were truly helpless. But for levels 44 to 46, the map went back to the ground. There was no reason for them to be so obedient. Yi Shu could not understand their plan at this moment. He could only go step by step. 2 days after breaking the record for the Thousand Waves Lake dungeon, everyone in the party reached level 44, which meant that they could begin setting the record for the next dungeon. The other guild's elite members had already left Thousand Waves Lake. But the war in Thousand Waves Lake left a side effect. The deaths had caused characters who were originally around the same experience level to have significant differences between them. The guilds used to level at the same speed, but it was all messed up now. However, even though there was an experience difference, they were still ahead of Yi Shu. Their characters were all gathered together already. The new dungeon was their main task after midnight. This time, Yi Shu obviously stopped selling his dungeon guides. With him participating, the guide wouldn't be a guarantee for breaking the record, so no one would buy it. The guide had become an exercise for concealed light to train his researching skill. Everyone, be careful. Midnight was about to arrive. Yi Shu and his team had already grouped up. He reminded them as they headed toward the leveling area and dungeon. Because of the difference in levels, the new leveling area was still controlled by the 99 characters. Here, Yi Shu's team would not have an advantage in the water because there was no water. If they gathered their forces and attacked Yi Shu's 5-player team, it would not be easy to deal with. Yi Shu understood this, so starting from this level, he had to be more careful in every aspect. It turned out that level 44 to 46 level up area Gloom Forest was like its name, quiet and gloomy. Besides the monsters hiding in the forest, Yi Shu didn't find any threat from other players. The more peaceful it was, the more focused Yi Shu became. Chen Guo, who was beside him, saw his expression and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. But that's what's wrong," Yi Shu replied. Could they be scared? Chen Guo said. Even if they're scared, because of the competition between clubs, they still have to think of a way and move forward. It's just like a pro match between a weak and a strong team. The weak team can't just surrender and not fight. They still have to think of a way to win. No, Yi Shu said. But this isn't a pro match with rules. It's just a game, Chen Guo replied. Game, Yi Shu mumbled the word while his character and his team arrived at Gloom Forest's dungeon entrance. What should we do? The other four were waiting for instructions from Yi Shu. Let go, and then, Yi Shu couldn't do anything. If nothing was happening, he could only follow the normal route. Level 44 to 46 Gloom Forest Dungeon. Even if Yi Shu wasn't selling walkthroughs anymore, he still had to break the record. Therefore, he needed to do research. It was the first time that the team was clearing the dungeon, so it wasn't that easy. From the beginning to the end, how to aggro, who to attack, etc. Yi Shu explained every little detail. For the first time, no results came out. His team could not remember every single thing Yi Shu said. They missed a few details here and there. 3 times a day was not enough practice. This was the same for the other guilds. Gloom Forest's dungeon record was still the system's for now. Tyrannical Ambition got the first clear record though. The next day was the same as the previous day. However, Yi Shu's strategy was based on the synergy between Yi Shu and Su Mucheng. Su Mucheng did not need Yi Shu to remind her of anything a second time. The two didn't need any time to get used to the dungeon. With the two of them at the core, the tasks for the other 3 were very simple. As a result, Yi Shu's team was able to get used to the dungeon very quickly, even when practicing the strategy. On their last run of the second day, they finally managed to get on TV and the system announced that they had set a new record. The world was filled with admiration and astonishment towards Lord Grimm. There was no doubt that Lord Grimm was the #1 player in the 10th server. The guilds who fought for the records as if it were a life or death struggle were nowhere to be seen. On the third day, they broke their own record. 3 runs, 2 new records. Guild Happy had the first 3 places on the dungeon record standings. On the 4th day, they set a new record another 2 times and occupied 5 places on the standings. The 5th day. The 6th day. Yi Shu was intentionally breaking their record over and over again. On Gloom Forest's dungeon record standings, the same guild and the same characters dominated every spot from 1 to 10. It was incomparably beautiful, but the top guilds were still as quiet as before. Chapter 399, The Coming of the Spring Festival. Fighting for the dungeon records was not as exciting as it had been without all the ruckus caused by the big guilds. It's just like how a marathon is only exciting when the winner emerges from a large group of runners. If there is only one runner in the whole race, then the race would be very boring. There won't be any suspense to the results. This was the case with Guild Happy hogging Gloom Forest's dungeon records. They had turned one of the most anticipated competitions into a dull monologue. Conquering the top 10 positions on the standings awed the players of the 10th server time after time. The members of Guild Happy couldn't be more proud about this. However, this was getting rather tiresome for the 5 people who were creating the records and monopolizing the rankings. Horse Shooter and Thousand Creations were not exceptions to this. After making 10 records in a row, their initial excitement was already history. In the end, everyone was bored with making records. New record. Yep, new record. Even the exclamation mark was gone this time. What's next? Tang Ru asked Yi Shu. It was clear that she hated the lack of challenges. It's good that there are no more troublemakers. Let's keep leveling up. Yi Shu was more realistic. His doubts about the lack of response from the big guilds were nowhere to be seen. Therefore, everyone continued with dungeon crawling, monster killing, missions, and other necessary leveling up works. Due to the difference in levels, the team members stayed the same every day. A multiplayer online game now just feels like a singles-player standalone game. It was getting a bit repetitive. However, Yi Shu was still quite into it. In addition to leveling up his own character every day, he would also spend some time on guild matters. He also helped out Tang Ru in Steam Bun Invasion, these two promising young players. He paid attention to Concealed Light's skill progress and dungeon research time after time as well. 1 day, 2 days. Time passed like this day by day. Everyone continued to level and pro matches continued to be played. Ever since that day, Happy Internet Cafe maintained its tradition of broadcasting matches on match day. However, Excellent Era no longer became the sole match. Other exciting matches were chosen instead. Because of this, the cohesiveness of the guests declined greatly and the matchdays lost much of its former excitement in the cafe. After all, in the past, the loyal spectators during matchday were there because they supported the same team. They were all friendly with each other because they shared a common language. These spectators might not necessarily like that big projection screen, but they certainly loved cheering and cursing together as a crowd, encouraging their favorite team. Happy Internet Cafe's matchday event had been so successful because of this type of atmosphere. But now, without the cohesiveness from supporting Team Excellent Era and only that projection screen, the results were completely night and day. On these match days, when an Attractus match came on, the Internet Cafe was able to gather quite a few spectators, but it was never as exciting as it had been before. Many people felt that it was truly a pity. Some of them even tried to persuade Chen Guo to return to the original format, but Chen Guo always rejected them without hesitation. Happy Internet Cafe couldn't compare in popularity to before on match days, but the regular business wasn't affected. The flow of customers every day was as strong as ever. The peaceful days went by quickly. During the entire leveling process from levels 44 to 46 in Gloom Forest, Guild Happy didn't receive any challenges from the top guilds and, just like that, the dungeon records were conquered. In the blink of an eye, it was already near the end of the month, and it was time for the Spring Festival. Glory had released Spring Festival events a while ago. The Spring Festival events were the same every year, with plenty of rewards. However, no matter how amazing the event was, it would be very difficult for it to upsurge the Internet Cafe's business. After all, the Spring Festival wasn't on the same level as Christmas in China. Even for the Pro Alliance, no matches were held during the Spring Festival. The usual frequent customers went back home during this time. Chen Guo was a generous boss and had let her employees go on vacation quite early. "What about you?" Chen Guo asked the employee that had been hired this year. "What about you?" the employee Yi Shu asked back. "This is my home," Chen Guo said. "Let me stay here," Yi Shu said decisively. "You're not going back home?" Chen Guo frowned. Yi Shu slowly shook his head. Chen Guo sighed, but didn't say anything. Family matters were his business. Even though the two of them could be considered as friends, Chen Guo didn't understand his family situation too well, so she didn't feel qualified to say anything. "Not bad. I'll have someone to accompany me this year." Chen Guo welcomed Yi Shu to stay. "What about little Tang?" Yi Shu asked. "She's packing her things." "She's going back home." Yi Shu's question was a bit weird. Chen Guo nodded her head. "Where does she live?" It was the first time that Yi Shu had asked about Tang Ru's personal life. But Chen Guo unexpectedly shook her head. "I don't know." Don't you think that little Tang's background is quite mysterious?" Yi Shu asked. Chen Guo only laughed. "So what? It's not like she's a bad person." "That's true." Yi Shu nodded his head. He turned around and continued to play the game. Tomorrow was Chinese New Year's Eve. There wasn't a single customer in the Internet Cafe. Only the sounds of Yi Shu's mouse and keyboard could be heard. The other employees had been given their red envelopes already and had gone back home happily to celebrate the festival. Chen Guo walked around, bored. Soon afterwards, she saw Tang Ru carrying her luggage downstairs and hurriedly went over to help. However, Tang Ru shook her hand, "It's not heavy," and carried it down herself. "Everyone's gone." Tang Ru looked around the Internet Cafe and said after her gaze landed back onto Chen Guo. "I'm still here." A hand was raised behind a computer in the corner. The hand waved around, answering the question for Chen Guo. "You're not going back home?" Tang Ru called out. "I don't have time." I have work to do, Yi Shu replied. Tang Ru and Chen Guo couldn't help but laugh. They had a general understanding of Yi Shu's situation though and knew that he was just joking. That obviously wasn't a reason not to go back home. In reality, what family didn't have a computer in this day and age? The internet cafe provided a type of atmosphere. For a special time like the Spring Festival, everyone had their own important atmospheres to experience. Those who liked to frequent the internet cafe temporarily went back home to play. Don't forget to keep leveling when you go back. Don't be like steamed bun and lag behind after the event is done. Yi Shu stopped doing his work and went over to sincerely warn the departing Tang Ru several times. Got it, Tang Ru chuckled. Come here, take the red envelope. Chen Guo handed over a big red envelope. Thanks, boss. Happy New Year. Tang Ru smiled splendidly and didn't decline it. What about me? Compared to not declining it, there was also someone taking the initiative to ask for it. What are you in a hurry for? Chen Guo rolled her eyes. I'm not even going back home. I should be getting money for working overtime, Yi Shu asked. Little Tang, let me help you call a taxi. Chen Guo ignored Yi Shu. After months of working together, Chen Guo deeply respected Yi Shu's skill, but she no longer adored or revered him anymore. Have a safe trip home. Yi Shu waved his hands to send Tang Ru off. Happy New Year. Tang Ru waved her hands towards Yi Shu and hopped into the taxi. Chen Guo and Yi Shu sent her off until she could no longer be seen. How cold. Let's go back. Yi Shu rubbed his neck and called after Chen Guo. Chen Guo replied and the two went back to the internet cafe. You're going to leave it open? Yi Shu pointed to the internet cafe's entrance. Chen Guo looked at it. It's not like it matters. Just leave it open. There was even a tree for Christmas. You're not going to put anything up for the Spring Festival? Yi Shu asked. Chen Guo stared blankly for a long while. That. I hadn't thought about it. You have no common sense, Yi Shu said. I've always been by myself. I've been too lazy to do it, Chen Guo said. Oh, but not this year. The weather's nice today. Why not go out and buy some decorations? Yi Shu said. The weather's not bad? Didn't you just say that it was cold outside? Chen Guo asked. It's cold because I'm wearing too little. Yi Shu rushed upstairs to wrap up a makeshift overcoat. Chen Guo stared dumbly at him for a long while. You don't have a second jacket? Chen Guo said. It's true, Yi Shu said. Didn't you move over from across the street? How could you be so lazy? You didn't bring anything, Chen Guo said. You have to know that I wasn't prepared to retire and work at your internet cafe, Yi Shu said. Then where's your stuff? Chen Guo asked. Probably, at Su Mucheng's place, Yi Shu asked. Ah, Chen Guo immediately grew excited. How about I come with you to get it? We can go 100 times. There's no rush. There's nothing to be in a rush for, Yi Shu said. That's not important. Chen Guo clearly wasn't concerned with Yi Shu's stuff. Chasing after a star? Don't be in a hurry. She's also on break. I'll just have her come over sometime, Yi Shu said. What day? What day? Chen Guo hastily asked. What day would you like? Every day. I'll go ask. Okay, let's go get the decorations first though. Chen Guo was excited. After cleaning things up for a bit, the two left the internet cafe. I say, your jacket can't be the only piece of clothing you brought, right? Chen Guo began to wonder. What do you want to say? Yi Shu glanced sideways. Have you washed and changed your clothing before? Since we don't have the same work and rest schedule, I'll forgive your poor observational skills, Yi Shu said. But how come I've never seen you buy anything? Chen Guo questioned. Taobao, miss. Chapter 400, I'm Yi Chu. The New Year's Chen Guo wasn't any different than her usual unrestrained self. Traditional or modern, decoration or food, useful or not, As long as she liked something, she wouldn't haggle over the price and just hand over her money. Afterwards, she pointed towards Yi Shu and gave her blessings with a big smile, saying, "Happy New Year's," or, "May you be happy and prosperous." Then, she stuffed her bags into Yi Shu's hands. Chen Guo clasped her hands behind her back, walking forward high and mightily. Hearing Yi Shu huffing and puffing behind her, she was certain that she had bought a good amount. This and this one too. How are you selling these, sir? Chen Guo decided that she would buy a bit more. She arrived at yet another vendor's booth and without even looking clearly at what items were being sold, she pointed to a few that caught her eye and asked. While she asked, she turned her head around in delight to look behind her. But there was no one there. Yi Shu, who had been behind her the entire time, had disappeared. When she had paid for the goods just before, Chen Guo still remembered that Yi Shu was behind her. Tomorrow was New Year's Eve. There weren't many people who waited until this day to buy New Year goods, though there weren't too few people either. Chen Guo stood on her tiptoes to look around, but wasn't able to find any trace of Yi Shu. She could only carry the goods she had just bought by herself and search by backtracking. But after just a few steps, she choked in anger. Yi Shu had pushed the New Year goods that had just been bought to one side and was sitting on a folding stool, which came from who knew where, sitting and smoking leisurely. The purchased goods that had been pushed to one side looked kind of like he had set up a small vendor booth. Yi Shu's eyes weren't bad. He quickly found Chen Guo and waved warmly at her. Chen Guo stomped her way over with a dark expression on her face, but she didn't know what to say. Seeing the pile on the ground, Chen Guo realized that she really had bought just a tad too much. Telling him that he couldn't take a rest was a bit mean. Is that enough? Yi Shu said modestly. All of this was more than enough to last 5 spring festivals. Just dullion alone, she liked this one and that one. In the end, she had bought a total of 7. Yi Shu calculated. There was Happy Internet Cafe's main entrance, the restroom, the door leading to his, Chen Guo's, and Tang Ru's rooms, the 2 doors to the 2 bedrooms, his small storage room, plus the restroom. There were a total of 7 doors, so it was the perfect number. It was hard to say if Chen Guo had actually thought of this though. Is it too heavy? Chen Guo asked. Obviously, Yi Shu wasn't Tang Ru and conceded. He wasn't going to carry them all stubbornly. Okay, let's go back then, Chen Guo said, while picking up a few of the bags. Finally, Yi Shu heaved a sigh of relief. He picked up the rest and went back home. By the time they got back to Happy Internet Cafe, the two were soaked with sweat despite the cold winter day. As soon as Chen Guo went through the entrance, she immediately found a nearby seat to sit down and pant. When she looked back, Yi Shu had already thrown down his stuff, though the person himself wasn't anywhere to be found. Where'd he go? Chen Guo muttered, but then heard a sound from behind her. She looked back and saw that someone had walked into the internet cafe. The sunlight was blinding outside, so Chen Guo wasn't able to see the person clearly. She thought that it was a customer, so she immediately got up to welcome the person. When she got up and saw the person clearly, she blurted out, "What are you doing?" The person who had come in was Yi Shu. He was dressed in formal attire. Draped across his arm was an overcoat. His elegant and stylish demeanor was bewildering. When the person heard Chen Guo speak, he was also startled, but he quickly regained his composure and gave a polite smile. "May I ask if Yi Shu is here or perhaps Yi Chu?" Chen Guo was surprised. The moment she saw Yi Shu looking like this, she had felt like she had made a mistake. As soon as this person spoke, Chen Guo realized that she really had made an error. This person, without a doubt, looked like the spitting image of Yi Shu. His face might look alike, but more importantly, his hairstyle and build were a bit different. Yi Shu quietly slipping away and switching attire to scare her was something she could believe, but switching his hair and his build in that short amount of time definitely wasn't possible. Chen Guo already felt like there was no need to ask this question. The two looked practically the same. Who else could he be? "I'm his younger brother." The person introduced himself. "Twins?" Chen Guo asked. "Yes. Could I ask who you are?" "Oh, I'm the boss here." "Yi Shu is here," Chen Guo said. "He was just here, now." "Yi Shu," Chen Guo shouted. Restroom, a similarly loud shout sounded back. Oh, he's over there. Chen Guo pointed to where the restroom was. I'll wait for him. The person nodded his head. You can sit wherever you'd like. Chen Guo also nodded her head. The person walked around a few steps and then asked in a casual manner, so he's using the name Yishu here? Yeah. Chen Guo walked to the refrigerator and after opening the door, she indicated for him to look. What would you like to drink? Fanta, apple. Thank you. Chen Guo grabbed a bottle of Fanta and threw it over. She also grabbed a bottle and asked, while twisting the cap, what do you go by? The person had jumped in fright at Chen Guo throwing the bottle over to him. With great difficulty, he was able to catch the bottle and regain his composure. When he heard Chen Guo's question, he immediately replied, my name is Yi Chu. Ah? Chen Guo was startled, you're Yi Chu? I've always been. Then he borrowed your name? Chen Guo asked. Yes. He even borrowed my credentials. Chen Guo was somewhat baffled. Their conversation stopped for a short moment, when they heard the sound of rushing water from the restroom. Soon after, the sound of a door opening and closing could be heard. Yi Shu walked over sloppily. Seeing Yi Chu standing near the entrance, he immediately went, oh. He's looking for you, Chen Guo said. Clearly, Yi Shu nodded his head. With the two in front of her, Chen Guo could distinguish between the two. Indeed, from only their face, the two looked exactly the same. But apart from that, there wasn't anything else about them that was alike. One of them was wearing neat and tidy attire, while the other was wearing the same jacket he had been repeatedly wearing for the past 2 months. Because their work and rest schedule were different, Chen Guo didn't even know whether he had ever washed his jacket before. One of them had an immaculate appearance, while the other had only just gone out to buy some stuff and his face already looked dirty. Then, she looked at their posture. One of them stood perfectly straight, even the curve of his arm looked as if they had been paid particular attention to. As for the other, Chen Guo couldn't help but compare. The guy looked like he hadn't even worn his pants on properly. When he walked, his head was lowered and his posture was slouched. What are you doing here? Chen Guo saw Yi Shu walk over unsteadily and greeted his completely different younger brother. I'm here to pick you up to go back home and celebrate New Year's. Who said I was going to go back? Yi Shu asked. If you don't go back, what are you going to do? I'm going to work overtime, Yi Shu said. Chen Guo immediately discovered another difference between the two, their tone of voice. Yi Shu's tone of voice was bold and confident as if everything he said was right. Even though Chen Guo had to admit that he was correct most of the time and everything should be like he said, but his tone of voice still made others want to punch him. In comparison, his younger brother had a very formal tone of voice. It was polite and proper. His tone of voice made it so it was impossible to tell if there was anything wrong. Chatting with such a person wouldn't be unpleasant. Did she introduce herself? This is my boss. Yi Shu introduced Chen Guo to Yi Chu. She's the one who told me to work overtime. Is that right? Yi Chu looked towards Chen Guo with uncertainty. He asked for it. I approved. Chen Guo wouldn't be unjustly blamed like that. Yi Chu's gaze immediately switched back to Yi Shu. Yi Shu exposed a helpless expression. I won't go back. It'll be the same as always. Why ask why? It's different now. Didn't you retire this year? Then what are you doing drifting around outside? Yi Chu said. Chen Guo's heart thumped. She suddenly recalled the guess she had made with Tang Ru that night. Had Yi Shu's retirement been caused by his family pressuring the club from behind the scenes? If not, why would his family immediately want him to come back after he retired? Retiring doesn't mean anything. You outsiders wouldn't understand, Yi Shu said. Retiring? Even if you want to come back, it will still take a year. No, Yi Chu said. Oh, you even know of this? It's not like you have anything to do this year. Why not come back home and take a rest? Yi Chu said. I can rest anywhere. It's all the same, Yi Shu said. Father's health hasn't been too good recently. That's what you always say. Fine. Actually, mother's. You're lying. Little Dot died. It's about time. He's already lived long enough, Yi Shu said coldly. Chen Guo couldn't listen any longer, but she felt like she had to understand something. Whose little dot? A dog, Yi Shu said. Chen Guo suddenly realized the brother deserved to be the brother. Twins really were twins. These two people had some understand with each other on some areas. The specifics would need more observation. Chen Guo pondered. She retreated 2 steps and sat in the chair behind her. She took 2 sips and continued to watch the show. Should I record it? Chen Guo felt the phone in her pocket. She had even thought of doing this. You really should come back, Yi Chu continued to urge him. Hey, Yi Shu chuckled, if I go back, it'll make it easy for you to run away. Is that it? The very proper Yi Chu had maintained his poise the entire time. This time, it seemed like his heart had twisted. Chen Guo watched as he suddenly shot forward like an arrow towards Yi Shu and grabbed Yi Shu's clothing with his 2 hands. Chen Guo started. She stood up and then heard Yi Chu say angrily, you shameful brother. That year, you stole the luggage that I had meticulously prepared. You went too far. It's more like I promptly discovered that my stupid little brother was about to run away from the family like an immature child and decided to take his place to teach him a lesson by example, Yi Shu answered.